Good evening, Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is our April 28th regular council meeting, and we'll start tonight with a moment of reflection and then get into to the approval of the agendas and go from there. So we'll start with a moment of reflection now. All right. Approval of the agendas. We have two, a consent agenda. Anyone wishing to poll or make a motion for the consent agenda as presented? Councillor Fox makes a motion to approve as presented. Any further comments, questions? See none, call to question, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. A regular meeting agenda, I've heard of no changes or additions. If there's no other comments from council, a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented. Councillor Henniger makes that motion. If no further discussion, call the question, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And then for the good of council, does anyone have something they wish to share for the good of council? Councillor Henniger.
Because it's only 2 sleeps away, I wanted to invite everybody again within the town of Fort Macleod and surrounding areas to explore on Wednesday from 10 to 5. We just had another 2 vendor sign up, so in total I think we'll have, with everybody there, around 100 employers with all of their staff and hiring managers, and just some great amazing opportunities for not only youth employment, volunteering, bringing your kids out if you want to see some excavators and really cool equipment. And then we even have painting and all the different awesome, amazing things at the Fort Macleod Arena on Wednesday from 10 to 5. So hopefully see everybody there this year.
Very good, thank you. I was going to highlight, we had another grade 6 class come by last week, Thursday, I believe, for a little bit of a mock council meeting and passing curfew bylaw. And so Fort Macleod currently does have a curfew bylaw in place as play. Yeah, so that was fun. They really enjoyed it, and I always appreciate it as well. So thank you for the school for coming by and the staff for helping with that. They really appreciate it. Any other comments for the good of council? I know today's election day, so I don't think it's gonna really impact us a whole lot directly, but hopefully everyone's had a chance to get out and vote. I think the polls close in what, half hour? All right. If there's any other comments, there was another event I thought. What was on my calendar? Oh, community cleanup. Is there any feedback on that? Was it a rainy day?
Yeah, it was a bit rainy, so we didn't have quite the numbers that we typically have, and it was kind of cold, but still had some good hardy residents who still came out in the cold. And I don't have the final count on bags, but yeah, it was still a successful event. Really appreciate those who did come out.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. If there's no other comments for the good of council, then we'll carry on to public hearings, of which tonight we have 3. And we'll go in order that they're in our agenda for now. And after that, we'll have consideration of the public hearings, and then we'll get into some new business. So I'll start off tonight by welcoming our planner, Gavin Scott, and ask him to introduce Bylaw 2000 to us. And after that, we will open up for a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, citizens. This evening we are beginning the second public hearing. We had a public hearing whereby we introduced comments from the public, and at that meeting we had not received the response from, oh, there's my write-up. We had not received the response from the MD of Willow Creek at the time, and they have since responded shortly thereafter. Sometime in January, they responded that they had no comments to the land use bylaw. So that left us free and clear to get this process going again. We also had from the public hearing a lot of feedback from the original public hearing, by which we did hold information forum for the agricultural landowners. The agricultural landowners came out and asked me many questions, and I helped clarify their position in the changes in the land use bylaw, give them a sense of where these changes are coming from and why, the positives of that. Some of them were solving some issues that they may not have recognized that were affecting their properties, as well as the major change, which is, of course, splitting of the zoning and explaining where that process came from. There also were discussions with some of the participants in the first public hearing, and clarification with those landowners as to what their options were should they want to make change to the bylaw. So this evening, Ms. Van Driesen is here. She will address her position. It is in your package. I only allude to it in my notes as a passing because I do know she has full presentation of her proposal for her land. So this evening in my memo, I'll just kind of hit all these points here. That from the public hearing, we did hear about electronic displays from Dr. Troy Bond. His idea was that the electronic displays as changeable copy be allowed to contain off-premise advertising. And that his dentist office location was on the couplet, and therefore he could provide that service for businesses that aren't necessarily on the highway. And so what is in front of you under number 1 there is the proposed change that would have seen this affected. Now, all the changes that are proposed by myself, the public, and as you hear this evening from other landowners, they certainly are your choice to either adopt into the bylaw or leave alone and not actually adopt them, or modify them. You know, we will, after tonight's public hearing, talk to council about what they heard, and we'll see whether or not you're willing to move forward with these ideas or want to see them change. My main priority tonight is to get all these ideas in front of you. Having heard them in the public hearing allows us to move forward with further amendments prior to second and third reading. So this number 2 that we have written down there was regarding garage suites and garden suites. We recently processed a permit whereby a relaxation of the requirement for a laneway on these large zone properties within the country residential and large lot residential districts, there was found to be that a lot of these developments don't have laneways. And therefore, this need for a laneway essentially precluded them from actually ever applying for these suites, but I don't believe is the intent of the bylaw. So it is proposed here that that change be made, and that staff does support that change. Number 3, Ms. Van Driesen will speak to, so I'll go past that one. From after the public hearing, we did receive some further comment, adding short-term rental to the commercial district to create an allowance for this use not to be owner-occupied within, as required by the short-term rentals. This one would be strictly restricted to the commercial central district where you have units above commercial, and given that these units there's not a lot of them above the businesses, the request is that it not be owner occupied. It does have the advantage of being in the downtown where a lot of these uses are believed to be tantamount to a hotel room. It would function very much like that in your downtown. The number 2 from after the public hearing, salvage and scrapyard. Now this was found to be a little inconsistent between the 2 districts, the industrial general district and the heavy industrial district. The industrial general district did not have the use, and we're suggesting it be added as discretionary B. And then in response to a tire recycling, as this type of use tends to be industrial, the suggestion is that it be added to the salvage and scrapyard definition. Going on then from what staff has also put forward is a few changes. The first one being in regards to the definition of mixed use. The second part of the definition, which reads, those of which may be specified determined by application of this bylaw, left a little to be desired as to what that meant. And so the written proposal is that both residential and non-residential uses must be listed within the district, and any commercial component shall be on the first floor, but may also occupy upper floors. Number two, we have in the mixed use definition the idea that you do have residential units, and the way this bylaw has been set up is that the dwelling units above non-residential and in the rear of non-residential are the dwelling components for that commercial mixed use. And in the commercial general district and the commercial neighborhood districts, these two uses are missing and therefore needed to be added to support the mixed use. Number three, within the agricultural residential transitional, the agricultural residential transitional garage height, where we changed it throughout town to 18 feet, or to 18 feet, was left at 16. So this is just a correction on what council had already directed be the maximum height for a garage in the community. Number four, that within the country residential district, maximum height for wind fences be set. Now, this country residential district does have existing wind fences. They were processed as accessory uses, or accessory structures, sorry. And accessory structures have no height limit. And then the question is asked, how high should they be? Now, the ones that were out there were processed and the landowner dictated what the height should be. We're merely suggesting that there be a height, that it doesn't begins at a number, and then allowing the neighbors perhaps to respond if the number goes beyond that height. And in number five, this one is a little bit more complicated. There was two definitions, equipment sales and service and farm supply sales and service. Both of them having merit, but in the processing of a recent approval for an implement dealer who had a mix of what would be farm equipment versus construction equipment. It was when we reviewed the details of those two definitions, we found that the farm supplies did not include the construction and vice versa. So the proposal is the two definitions you see before you. There is a equipment sales and service light, which is split at about 13,000 pounds of weight. And then anything larger than that goes up from there. And so really what this is doing is mixing the types of construction equipment. There really is no difference, ag versus construction, and why they were ever separated to the point where the applicant couldn't even fit into the one category. It left staff with a question. So that is the changes from staff as summarized. And as well, going on, again, back to the public hearing continuance. The bylaw does contain many updates, and not only those that I've suggested, but we have, in summary, a split between the agricultural zonings, as well as a split between the multi-unit residential development. That one, the multi-unit residential development, will be coming back after the adoption of the bylaw. And it will affect all those multi-unit properties that are above 4 units, giving them that change to the multi-unit 2, and then all the others will become multi-unit 1. Perception there is that there should not be a lot of controversy, as it is giving them what the bylaw stipulates is their density. Okay, so other little relevant changes to the color throughout the bylaw. Now, we are also addressing this agriculture through direct control. That'll be mentioned by Ms. Van Driesen this evening. We did add the gateway overlaps to the map, revisions to the Alta-Link lands to public, a change of the provincial historic area overlay boundary color to light blue. And then there are new sections regarding shipping containers, residential sales centers, campgrounds, mining operations, data mining operations, sandblasting, short-term rental, setbacks from steep slopes and water bodies, dwelling groups, electronic signs, not to mention all the other tidying up that was done in the bylaw. As a final note, there are two bylaws in process right now. Bylaw 2001 will be heard tonight, and second and third reading is planned. As that bylaw is being passed through the current land use bylaw, bylaw 1882 is the current bylaw, and it will be replaced by this current proposal for bylaw 2000. That change will need to be reflected on this map as you see it above you, and it is that stuff next to the highway. I don't know if you put the hand on it, up and over to the east, down, there. That property there is bylaw 2001. It is being adopted this evening. This map will need to be corrected, and I'm making you aware of that correction. So when it passes, that bylaw will now show that as industrial. There's also bylaw 1997 that's in process. The public hearing of that one won't occur until May 12th. And in that we have a couple choices. We can update the map at that time, or we can change the reference. Right now that bylaw is referencing an amendment to bylaw 1882. That reference would need to change to bylaw 2000 as this thing proceeds. So we're going to play that one by ear. We'll see what happens with your look at the bylaw and moving forward. There is a need to pause council prior to second and third. That's why it's not being presented this evening for these changes and consideration of these changes. And we'll have a working meeting with council to go through the changes to make sure that you understand them, that you have any suggestions heard, and that we work on finalizing the bylaw before we get it to second and third. Okay, so as is stated this evening, we do have a recommendation that we proceed with the public hearing this evening, hear from those others, and then go on from there. Second and third will be scheduled in the future. We're not sure we'll make the May 12th, depending on how much work you give me. But certainly by the end of May, we'll be looking at second reading. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. So because we never closed the previous public hearing, and the public hearing is currently open, so we don't need a motion to open the public hearing, correct? Right, okay. So then a motion to reconvene the public hearing from bylaw 2000. Councillor Wolstenholme makes the motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. So being the bylaw 2000 has been presented, it's our land use bylaw for the town of Fort Macleod. Anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2000, we invite you to the mic, state your name, your position, and state your case. We look forward to hearing from you.
This one? No. Oh, okay. Thank you. Good evening, Town of Fort Macleod Council. I am here to represent Crocus Coulee Ranch. Okay. There? Okay. Still not very good. Hello? Hello? I can just speak loud enough. Is that okay? Okay. So as Gavin said, I'm Janine Van Driesen here representing Crocus Coulee Ranch. Bruce Braden and I have met with Gavin and Anthony and Brandon and Kelly twice, I believe, just to go over and see exactly what the proposal from the town was for the gray square there above the purple townland. Yeah, that's us. So instead of, I think the list is amongst everybody now? Okay. So pretty much that documents everything that we've discussed, and I think that if the town proposed, you know, just to have those 40 acres, we may as well just do the whole corridor as direct control. There's a few other things that are listed there, and that is all correct. I don't know if you need, do I need to answer questions or?
No, sorry, I think if you had anything above and beyond this, if you wanted to highlight anything, that would be great. And then if council has any questions for you, they can also ask them
Yeah.
after you're done.
I think that it's in writing here and you guys can
Okay.
read it, so we're good.
So basically, 3 items that you're asking, change the entire quarter to direct control. Permitted uses, that would be done under direct control then, right? Because technically,
Yeah, so this is one where we have a bit of work to do, the drafting of the direct control and put it into the bylaw in a format, in the land use bylaws format, by taking Janine's suggestions here and working through them and making sure that everything is correct as far as the verbiage and how it's cited in the bylaw. And then the decision is still yours. If you felt, say, that permitted use of natural resource could be discretionary, you could move it. Any of those thoughts can be yours. Janine is putting her best foot forward on what her family desires. Yeah. And then from there, it's a discussion with council to see if there's anything else you'd like.
thank you. Does council have any questions for Janine regarding what's been submitted? I think obviously there's been a lot of conversations, and I'm assuming they were good. And we just need to make sure that we have some discussion. And if we have any questions, we'll be sure to be in touch again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2000? Hello. Yes. Welcome. Is your red light on? Just make sure it's on.
Need a red light? Okay. I've got a pretty good voice. Farm kid. Okay. I can deal with that. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Scott, other residents. I'm coming at this from the standpoint of both a resident of the town and someone who has, let's just say, a historical education and work environment related to business and the environment. So I read big documents and try and make sense of them. One of the things that I may be lacking in background on a couple of these, and there may be some terms that some areas that I'm not quite certain what the boundaries are, but the land use map has the ag to residential designation. And as far as I can tell, some of that area is within the area that could be on Alberta Environment's flood likelihood maps. And I was looking at it, the flood likelihood maps this afternoon, which obviously include a lot of the area that's already got some houses on it in the river valley across the river, across the bridge, and others that don't. So it's hard to see, looking at that map, exactly where the ag to RT boundaries really are with relevance to the flood likelihood maps. But basically my question and my point of concern is that if this area is noted by Alberta Environment as an area that's going to flood, but potentially flood within the 100-year time point, and is certainly in some of the mapping area, they'd say the likelihood is 90 to 100% within the 30-year window, but that's something that should be a major concern with switching this to higher density use than just agricultural. So if the areas are developed and something goes wrong, other communities have had the displeasure of having to replace, repair infrastructure, roads, and deal with concerns like that, because of course, developers are long gone by that point in time. So the town, as other municipalities have found, the town would suddenly find itself on the hook, and therefore those of us who pay taxes, which is everyone that's in this room, in some manner or other, either as business tax or residential tax. So it seems a bit unstable in terms of that possibility. And if our darling upstream dam was ever to bust loose, which is theoretically a possibility if there was an earthquake or other, let's just say, deliberate action taken, that could occur, and what would happen at that point in time. So that's one of my concerns, is on that combination. If you start increasing the density, then you have additional infrastructure and you have costs associated with that, and the possibility of a whole lot of people that said, you guys approved it. It's part of the town. Take care of it. The other part that's closely related to that is the setback calculations on the portion that's either near the river itself or on the above zone, currently above the river edges zone. There's various setbacks that are issued, and it looks like in some cases, the way that I'm reading the document right now in section 4.9 variance, under variances, the development officer would have the option for modifying structural alterations or setbacks without public notification or consultation, which could be a concern. I generally prefer a little more openness on stuff. You know, if it's something like that that's going to cause a potential risk, other neighbors and potential taxpayers could potentially have concerns, and I prefer to have such things as that considered in a more public forum like the MPC than just with the development officer. No disrespect to the development officers intended, but one person can only know so much. And giving a whole lot of authority to that one person always has risks, especially if there's not even any public notification. Is there something going on in the background here? Oh, the polling station's closing down? Okay. So I'm not certain what the basis of some of these setback calculations are on. Hopefully that's considered the possibility of the river altering course again, which it's had a nasty habit of doing over its, current history, even within the time that the town has existed, and certainly in the time period before that, the river valley has changed over time. And as it is all river valley, that area in town and in probably that area as well, up on the top, most of this area is underlain with what we will call loosely gravel, but sometimes is the size of boulders. But regardless, is not necessarily something that's going to, if there's any kind of shift or flood action or anything else, it's not going to stop things from moving.
Very good. Any other highlights from your presentation?
No, that's the main points.
Those are the major points?
Yeah, you've got the rest of it.
Okay. Does council have any question for our presenter tonight? We appreciate you. That was a lot of reading you did. So
I read the entire document from head to toe.
There's not many that have done that, so
Including
kudos
probably
to
not
you.
too many members of the council.
Yeah, it's possible. So yeah, we want to thank you for taking that time.
I did
and
read
looking
it
through
cover to cover.
Yeah, good for you.
And I thank you, Anthony, for allowing me the privilege of borrowing one of your copies of it to
Yeah.
read the entire document instead of trying to look at it online.
Okay. Well, very good. And thank you again. And if you have any other comments, don't be afraid to drop administration an email with questions or whatever you might have.
Thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2000? It's a land use bylaw for the town of Fort Macleod. If there's no one else here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2000, then the recommendation is for a motion to close the public hearing for this bylaw. Anyone prepared to make the motion? Councillor Fox makes the motion. I'll call it the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And we are moving on then to bylaw 2001, as was referred to already by our planner Gavin Scott, and we'll ask our planner again to introduce bylaw 2001. First reading has been passed, and this is a presentation before public hearing. Gavin Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of bylaw 2001 is to redesignate lands legally described as the portion of northeast of 7-925 west of the 4th from agricultural AG to industrial IG. The purpose of the public hearing tonight is to hear whether or not there's concerns of the public regarding this zoning. The property currently zoned agriculture. The town's intention is to subdivide this parcel into 4 smaller parcels. That subdivision will allow for additional development. The town of Fort Macleod land use bylaw does not allow for subdivision within the agricultural zone parcels, and interested buyers of these parcels are certainly in favor of the industrial zoning to accommodate their development plans. The MDP policy 5.23 does support the industrial zoning in this location. This application was advertised in the Gazette on April 2nd and 16th. Comments were received from the MD of Willow Creek, which are in your package. Now, to address those, I believe the main position of the MD of Willow Creek is to have an intermunicipal development plan meeting to discuss the road on the east side of this property. That road is currently in the MD of Willow Creek. There is an agreement with the town for a heavy haul agreement, but there is question going forward as the town accesses it more and more about who should maintain the road. And whether or not that goes beyond just an agreement, that's what the IDP discussion would be. Okay, so you also have notes in there about your strategic plan and applicable legislation. The recommendation this evening is council give second and third readings of the bylaw after the public hearing has been heard. Thank you.
Very well, thank you very much. Requesting a motion now to open the public hearing for bylaw 2001. Councillor Fox makes that motion. Call to the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Bylaw 2001 is now in a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2001, which is a land use bylaw amendment to rezone lands from agriculture to industrial general. Anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2001? I call out again. Anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2001? And lastly, anyone wishing to speak for or against bylaw 2001? If there is none, I will request a motion from council to close the public hearing for bylaw 2001. Councillor Patel makes the motion. Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We have another public hearing today for bylaw 1993, and we're going to ask our Director of Operations, I think, unless you want to present it, Anthony. I'm wondering if we go on to consideration of public hearings. Yeah. Your bodyguard? Would you like Brendan to introduce bylaw 1993 public hearing for us? Doesn't sound like it, but your lights.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
you're good.
So, what we're looking for, so this is bylaw 1993, the Built Heritage Advisory Board. So we're looking for a public hearing for this bylaw. And then we're looking to have second and third reading on this bylaw. So just a little bit of background. So this is the revision of bylaw 1839 to 1993. We're clarifying the role of the advisory board, its scope and its membership. And just a few details. So bylaw 1993 revisions focus on the clarification of the scope of the advisory board and their role to provide advice on development within the provincial historic area. It also defines the board's limits on private property that may be in the heritage inventory or development specifically allowed or not allowed in the land use bylaw. Some adjustments to the requirements of members were made to be more open to members of the public to participate with a minimum attendance for the quorum. And there were also added some comments for the BHAB to be a source of information and support with the application of grants.
All right, thank you. Anyone prepared to make a motion to open the public hearing for bylaw 1993? Councillor Poitras makes the motion. Called the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We are currently in a public hearing for bylaw 1993, which is a bylaw regarding the Built Heritage Advisory Board, some changes to the bylaw. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 1993? I'll ask again. Anyone here wishing to speak for or against bylaw 1993? Last call. And if there's no one here to speak for or against, I'll request a motion to close the public hearing for bylaw 1993. Councillor Wolstenholme makes the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. So under consideration of the public hearings we just had, we have bylaw 2001. Bylaw 2000 will be dealt with at a future date. Bylaw 2001 has been presented. There's been some discussion. Does anyone have any questions regarding bylaw 2001 or prepared to make a motion for second reading of said bylaw? Councillor Fox makes the motion for second reading of bylaw 2001. Any questions or comments from council? I'm assuming as part of this bylaw, the whole land use heavy haul agreement, that's totally outside of this bylaw either way, correct?
Yeah, this is where certainly Anthony, having had discussions with Derek, I think this is an intermunicipal thing that we need to deal with. It is not uncommon for two jurisdictions to have to work this out. Now, some of the information in their letter is erroneous, certainly from the point of a development agreement. The only development agreement that can be signed is with the town. An applicant within your municipality cannot sign one outside your community. So, but we just need a working relationship, as we always have said through the intermunicipal development plan with the MD of Willow Creek, and ensure that both parties are getting what they need with this road. The zoning, I think, is understood. It's been in the MDP for since 2014-15, so that's 10 years of it sitting there, that this is the intent that the industrial growth happen in this location. And then from there are lingering long-term questions about the bypass and what that would do to this road, that connection to the Beaufort and then over to Orton. So that's another discussion as well, and that may be brought up at the Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee meeting with the MD as to what happens at that location for that road.
CEO Burdette, did you have any other comments you wanted to make on that?
Just that, I guess with our recent history with the MD of Willow Creek and our successful IDP meetings, I'm hopeful that it shouldn't be, too big of a hurdle for us to kind of work through the details on this. They were, when they first approached us, after they discussed it with their MPC, they were pretty optimistic that we could sort out a solution that would help us, further development in this area without, having to be hindered by, them as another party in the agreement. And so they were quite hopeful that we could get these things settled fairly easily.
Would you say that meeting would probably happen sooner than later, just to make sure we're clear on kind of what their
The IDP
expectations
meeting?
are? Yeah, just
Yep.
around this subdivision anyways.
Yeah, we would like to have that pretty soon.
Yeah. Okay. All right, motion for second readings on the floor. Any further questions or discussions? Debate? If there is no further discussion, then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Anyone prepared to make any motion for a third reading of bylaw 2001? Councillor Batal makes the motion. Is there any further discussion or questions? Seeing none, we'll call it the question. Oh, Councillor Monteith.
So these concerns would not impact us changing the zoning.
Yeah, so again, I always ramble on and maybe not hit the point. The question here is, at what point would this change impact the MD? And really, it's at the point of development application. So most development applications through the IDP, discretionary especially, but anything on the boundary goes to them, except for permitted uses. So their concerns over transportation impact assessment, that's the time where those things can be brought forward. And I think as staff is being due diligent, we might circulate everything to them until this is resolved, so that they have a chance to comment on every use being brought forward.
If I can add something to that,
Yep.
just in generalities, like the application for the, potential future owners and that, we did discuss that, and the MD, like I said, it's nothing formal at this point, but they were in favor of the idea of the business that's proposed to go in there. We're not at that point yet, really, because nothing's happened enough to know that, but generally speaking, they were very much in favor of the development, and this is obviously the logistics of getting it done is just the stuff that we have to take care of.
Very good. Thank you for those comments and questions. Any further questions or comments? We are at third reading of bylaw 2001. If there is no comments, then I'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to consideration of bylaw 1993 in a public hearing we just held. Anyone prepared to make a motion for second reading of bylaw 1993? Councillor Henniger makes that motion. Does anyone have any questions, comments, debate regarding bylaw 1993? Seeing none. Councillor Poitras, did you have any comments? You're all good? All right. We will then call this motion a question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Anyone prepared to make a motion for third reading of bylaw 1993? Pardon me? Councillor Patel makes the motion. Any further questions or comments? Debate? Seeing none, we'll call it the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion for third reading of bylaw 1993 has been carried. All right, we are moving on to new business tonight. And first up, we have bylaw 1998, which is our 2025 mill rate bylaw, and our Director of Finance would like to speak to this one.
Thank you, Mayor Fader. Good evening, Council. This evening, first on the agenda is bylaw 1998, the 2025 mill rates. Council has already given this bylaw first reading. I guess I'll go through maybe a few of the highlights of the mill rates for 2025. The assessment went up, both due to growth and inflation. Based on the new assessment and the prior year's mill rates, Council determined that in order for the town to have enough municipal taxes to run the municipal corporation and have some left over to put into our reserves to fund capital projects for 2026, that there was going to be some changes to the mill rates for 2025. So the residential municipal mill rate went down from 5.81 mils to 5.55 mils. The non-residential municipal mill rate went up from 11.29 mils to 11.71 mils. What other highlights can I think of? Council broke out into a subclass, vacant properties. So that's both residential and non-residential assessments are now subclasses. So they have their own mill rates. Council determined that those mill rates will mirror the improved mill rates for both residential and non-residential for 2025. However, they do have their own mill rates now, and now council has the flexibility to change the mill rates as they see fit in the future. Other than that, the alternative minimum tax went up. No, that's personal taxes. Oh my gosh, that's alternative minimum tax for personal taxes. The minimum tax for property taxes went up this year. It just went up by 2%, so it's about $370 this year for a minimum tax on a property. Other than that, as I said in the very end of it, the financial applications, based on the increased assessment with the changes to the municipal mill rates, that fund town operations, we had an increase of about $490,000, and that flowed through at the end of our, as you'll see in the operating plan, it flows through into our capital reserves, and we've earmarked that money to the 10th Street rehabilitation project that's slated for the books in 2026. I'd be happy to take questions, whatever council needs to know, but tonight we're asking for a second and third reading. Thank you.
Very good, thank you very much. Anyone prepared to make, member of council make a motion for bylaw 1998, second reading? Councilor Boytris makes that motion. So the motion is on the floor for second reading of bylaw 1998. Any questions from council? For administration? Been through this a little bit. CEO Burdette has a comment.
Just a fun fact, at 5.55 compared to 2024 mill rates for the province of all the towns in the province, that would put us at, I don't know if you say top or bottom, but in one of the 5 lowest communities in the whole province.
1 of 5.
Yeah, so there's only 4 that would be lower than us in the whole province. And some of those are, well, we don't need to talk about that, but yes, we would be in the 5 lowest tax rates for residential in the whole
And
province.
that's out of like 300 communities roughly, right? 400?
I don't know that number. I've got them all
But
listed here.
that's strictly towns you're comparing to, or all?
Just towns.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't
not
review all the
counties or
cities.
any-
There are a couple cities that have close to the 5, some, but yeah. But just a fun fact.
That's a good fact, thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding bylaw 1998? If not, then we'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Requesting motion now for third reading of bylaw 1998. Councillor Fox makes that motion. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll call it to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Our bylaw 1998 third reading has been carried.
Thank you.
Well done, Director of Finance. That was very good. Moving on then to our operating budget for 2025, and our Director of Finance, Chris Holbeck, would like to speak to this as well.
Thank you again, Mayor Fader. Tonight before council, we have 2025 operating budget. We have reviewed this at committee of the whole, went over it department by department. Because the mill rates drive our budget, we pass the mill rate budget first, and then we pass our operating plan for we pass the budget for 2025, and then a 3-year plan for the next 3 years, because that's what the MGA requires us to do. I don't know what else to say about the budget. It just seems like we talked about it for a long time now. Nothing too crazy to talk about. I've put highlights in the plan. It'll be up on the website. The biggest thing is that with the increase in tax that we talked about during the mill rate bylaw discussion, there is a surplus, like a surplus at the end of it, and it all flows into our reserves, which are our savings account, and it's earmarked for that 10th Street project. So I'm not sure. I don't have much to say. I will take questions all day long. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would request a motion from council for a motion to approve the 2025 operating budget. Councillor Henniger makes the motion. Any questions regarding the 2025 operating budget? Councillor Monteith?
Does the 3-year forecast go to the provincial government?
It goes on our website.
You don't think the province gets it?
I don't send this to the government.
Okay.
No, but they require it in legislation. That 3-year plan is part of the, if we pass this operations plan in 2024 for 2025, I would have to have 25, 26, and 27. But because we pass it in 25, I have to have 26, 27, 28. So 26, 27, and 28, I add 3%. So it's not very it's mathematical.
And there's no guarantee it's anywhere close to actual. We're not bound by it. It's just numbers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just numbers. The only column in this plan or this document that matters to us is 2025.
Yeah, and the only real number that matters too is that we have a balanced budget, right?
Yeah, that's required by law. We always balance our budget.
And then I think there's been some discussions, 'cause it's been interesting over the last, I don't know why it's come up in the last year, but I get a few comments. Well, you guys had $1 million surplus, so you should be able to afford it. So I think that's part of that communication piece again. Yeah, the town's not flush with cash because we had $1 million surplus in our operating budget. It's all the money ends up going into reserves to fund projects. So I'm just wondering if there's another way that it's too late for this year, but we can do it in such a way that it takes that surplus out of it and directly puts it into reserves.
So within this budget, in the budget that you're passing tonight, there is on the very last page, there's a line item that says $446,000 is going into capital reserves for the 10th Street project. I can do that. Now that it's been specified, I can make that entry. Normally, I just say it's going into capital reserves, not earmarked for anything specific or to a certain capital fund or reserve. But this year we did it. So now I can move it because we have a reserve policy that I can't move stuff around without council saying, you can move this money here. So now that council has said within this budget that money is going to that project in that capital reserve, now I can move it before the end of the year. Normally I can't. So we may have another $1 million surplus, but that will be because the CAO sold all the land. That's the only way we're going to get there this year.
Again, that's right. No, it's probably just before something hits a newspaper, we just have to find a way to get ahead of that communication a little bit. It's I've heard it from a few different places this year for some reason. I think this year the way it was worded, it was just town has surplus, and that's all people seen. Okay. Any other comments, discussion on the operational budget, final operational budget for 2025? Any comments from our CAO? This is all you, eh?
Just I guess a comment to speak. I like to speak to the surplus discussion, right? And I think with further education and further understanding of how the budget works, I think residents can understand that. And I don't like the word when it says surplus, because really if you're taking $2.5 million for amortization, that means we're $2.5 million less valuable essentially with all of our assets, and $2.5 million there, but $1 million cash surplus. So, that's one of the administration's kind of goals, is when people do have those comments, to educate, right? Like, yes, we had $1 million cash left over, and then that goes back into capital, that goes to our reserves, and here's all the capital projects we're doing. And so it is robust, right? There's a lot to consider there, and so we're always striving to educate. So, and maybe we can convince Frank not to use the word surplus, essentially, but yeah, I mean, it is a cash surplus, but it's something that we try to educate, because I think when they understand, it helps them think we don't have a lot of money just sitting around.
Councillor Monteith?
The thing people have to understand is we spend capital out of reserves, but the only way we can put money into reserves is if we have surplus. So the only way we can fund capital is through surplus. So it's a deceptive term, because you have to be able to have both operating and capital to make sure the town operates the way it should be.
Oh, very good. Any other comments you want to make around the budget overall and the process, how it went? I think this year, that went good. Any other closing comments on budget 2025? No? Perfect. All right, motion on the floor is to approve the 2025 operating budget, and has included a 3-year operating plan. Motion's been tabled. Call to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Our 2025 operating budget has been carried. Thank you, council. Now we can spend money. Moving on to bylaw 1999, council procedural bylaw. We've had some discussion with the committee of the whole, and I'm assuming RC Alberta will be speaking, introducing this for us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you have our bylaw 1999, which replaces our previous procedural bylaw, which was 1903. One of the main reasons that this was brought forward to the council and discussed at the committee of the whole was the requirement from the changes in the MGA to have a requirement on how we would, allow for electronic participation in public hearings, and also what we're doing for electronic meetings when it comes to council. And so administration and council went over those parts. They are highlighted in the package that you have before you. Essentially, for those here at the meeting, the changes in the electronic sector, or electronic section of this bylaw, essentially what council agreed to was that we can hold electronic meetings. Sometimes they might have to all be electronic if it's an emergency, but essentially if council approves the participation of another councillor a way to participate electronically, we've given them that ability. We just put it at council's discretion, because it happens once, twice, but if, let's say, it's happening a dozen times, maybe council says, well, we'd prefer you're in person, and we do have that language in there that the preference is in person. The chair must be in person unless the whole meeting is electronic. That was one thing that we clarified as well. And essentially there's some electronic etiquette speaking to, have to be free of distraction. If you go into an in-camera, there has to be, you have to tell everyone that, you're going to have to promise that you're the only one in the room, because it is a confidential portion of the meeting. Yeah, and when it gets into the public hearing section, some of the highlights there is just that administration is giving opportunity for people, if they would like to participate. We'll do our best to accommodate that. They'll be allowed to submit requests for presentation. We can bring them in electronically last minute if they have suggestions, or if they have things that they'd like to say. For example, today's public hearing, if someone was to email in today, I could read off their for or against. So that allows them to have a voice in the public hearing, but not necessarily be in the public hearing if it's last minute, because it's a little more challenging to connect with them. Yeah, and there were a few other cleanup items throughout the bylaw, mostly just, some cleanup items. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. Oh, some scheduling, not scheduling. The agenda, for example, it used to be very rigid that this is the order of the agenda, and we changed that to this is normally the order of the agenda, but at the approval of the agenda, council may decide, hey, I'd like to switch this around, and if everyone agrees, then it's allowed. And a few other things that just cleaned up some language. Yeah, and so one of the requirements for the section 199 of the MGA is that the electronic, I guess the public hearing electronic piece of this bylaw be passed before April 30th. So that's why today we are requesting all three readings of this bylaw. Yeah, but if there's any questions, I would gladly try to answer those. But yeah, our recommendation tonight is to pass all three readings of bylaw 1999. Thank you.
Very good, thank you very much. Anyone prepared to make a motion for a first reading of bylaw 1999? Councillor Fox makes that motion. Any questions for administration on bylaw 1999? No clarifying questions, no comments, any debate or discussion? I think the green items were just things that we've changed since our last discussion, correct?
Yes, the green items were after discussion. We had added to it because I think, and they were important. I think we clarified some important things there so that it was as clear as possible.
And then we've already seen it on today's agenda. We have item L, which is considerations arising from in camera. So that's already been changed.
Well,
So I think before we did that on occasion, but never really was in the agenda package. So
correct.
So that's good to see. If there's no further discussion or questions, then the motion's been tabled. We'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. We'll invite Councillor to make a motion for second reading. Councillor Poitras would like to make that motion. Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And requesting a motion from council for unanimous consent to proceed with third reading of bylaw. Councillor Fox makes that motion. I will call that to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Unanimously carried. And requesting a motion from council for third reading of bylaw 1999. Councillor Wolfson makes that motion. And if there's no further discussion, we'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, council. And moving on then to NRC decision. I think this is more an information item, but did our Director of Operations want to speak to this at all?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So just as information, the town administration has formalized the policy for the use of our outdoor facilities. As
That's not this item. I can speak to this item.
Yeah, that's good.
thank you, CAO.
Yeah, so this is essentially just an information item here. There was some history with this item and there was some discussion, and I mean, coincidentally, the NRCB came just last meeting, kind of talked to us, kind of how their processes worked, but this specific item is the approval. Yeah, it's the notice of the approval, and so there was kind of the initial approval, but then some things changed, and with an amendment, and then this is the approval for the, I don't have the exact location, but it's the one that's northwest of town that we all learned about very quickly. And so this is just the notice of that approval, and that'll be going forward with the conditions listed in the package. So it would just be accepted as information at this time.
Yeah, unless council, obviously there's an appeal process, so we have up until May 2nd to submit an appeal, right? Or request for review or something. I think we had done that at the previous decision making, and that's why NRCB came to council, which was good. So I guess requesting right now a motion from council to accept as information? Councillor Fox makes that motion. Any further discussion or comments from council? Councillor Monteith?
Do we know if they accepted any of the comments that were made by locals in council?
I think they would have accepted them. I don't know that they made any changes. I've not gone through the full submission. It's 35 pages long and very detailed. CEO Burdette.
The information that I've gone through is they didn't change from the requirements that their standard requirements. The reason they had to change was just some of the distances from, I think it was from actual. Once they got out there and actually saw the distances, that's why they had to do a bit of a notice again for some of the changes there. But no, none of the NRCB requirements were changed. So not to say that they didn't accept and hear what was said, but the standard approval process was still followed.
All right, any other comments or discussion or debate? Seeing none, we'll call the motion to question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And I believe that brings us to the end of our public portion. We'll request a motion to go in camera for one FOIP 16, interest of third party decision. So request a motion from council to go in camera. Councillor Fox makes that motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried.